Welcome back, everybody. In today's episode, we're going to take some acrylic sheets, some clear acrylic tubing, some clear acrylic balls, some methylene chloride, and a handful of relatively inexpensive tools I haven't used before to make some acrylic sanding blocks. Let's get to it. Alright guys, I know I showed this all to you in the intro, but let's just run through real quick what I have here. All this together cost me 225 bucks Canadian after shipping. So to start off, we got our acrylic sheet. It's neon green because I love neon green. I got 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch, or 6 mil and 3 mil, I think, something like that. And then we've got some 1 inch outer diameter, 7/8 inner diameter clear acrylic tube. We've got some, I think these ended up being 1 3/4 inch balls, and then 1 inch balls. They didn't have any, I sort of wanted the 1 1/4 or 1 1/2, but they didn't have anything in stock aside from that. I've got my methylene chloride here. So this is the main component of Weld-On No. 4 acrylic adhesive. It's designed to chemically bond pieces of acrylic together. Pretty cool stuff. Also toxic though, so we will be wearing some PPE when using that. And then to apply that, I've got the cheap option, squirter bottle. I think that was like $3 or $4 or something. And then the better option from what I read, are syringes with 22 gauge tips. However, I have 25 gauge tips because it's what they had in stock. So we're gonna make it work. And then lastly, I've got a vinyl cutter here, or sorry, a acrylic cutter here, plastic cutter, because you score with that back edge and then you snap your acrylic. So let's play with this stuff and see how well it works. So if you guys were wondering why I left the protective film on there, it makes it a lot easier to measure, see what I'm doing, not scratch my acrylic while I'm putting metal tools on here to measure. So everything's going to be done for the 3M hook it style backing. I will be throwing adhesive hook it backing on there after. This is from Vivid Vinyl, I think. Got this on Amazon for, I want to say this was like 15 bucks. So that is on top of the original cost of 225 bucks for everything else. So as you can see, I've measured this out. It's roughly 2 11/16 inch wide. So I'm going slightly less than that for how wide I want to make my cut. There will be a little bit of sanding and cleanup after, so I don't want to go too much narrower. But I'm about a 32nd of an inch narrower than the actual sandpaper, because whenever you're using a sanding block, especially when they get longer, if you don't have it perfectly straight, you want a little bit of overhang for your sandpaper. So I have no idea if I'm actually gonna have to clamp this down to get a nice clean cut, but we're gonna play with it here. This is the 1/8 inch thick acrylic I'm starting with. So I figured it'll be easier to work with than the 1/4 inch to get a feel for the product anyway. Oh, that's neat. It literally like scrapes out a little string of acrylic. So I don't know how many passes I'm gonna have to do. Just go until it feels right. So like I said, guys, this is a lot of trial and error. Okay, not quite breaking yet. Let's try scoring that a few more times. Woo! Neat. Awesome, that gave a surprisingly clean edge. I don't know if we'll need to do any cleanup on that, but yeah, we'll see. Alright guys, so I saved you the time of watching me scrape. Honestly, it went pretty smoothly. It was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. One thing to watch out for though, if you do go off track a little bit, it does leave a nice bright line, especially on these neon colors. So I got a 5 1/4 inch block, 7 15/16. I've got 2 at 10 5/8. I'll explain why in a second. 16 inches and 24. I figure that gives me a pretty good variety. The reason I want to do 2 at this length is The 1/8 inch is quite flexible, and I figured this would be a perfect candidate to throw a couple of those acrylic balls on the ends of and get a nice flex block out of it. So that's why I got 2 of those. I'm not going to get into the 1/4 inch stuff tonight, I don't think. Maybe we'll throw it into the video. We'll see. But let's keep going here. Cut some handles. Alright guys, I'm going to try to cut the square tubing on my trusty bandsaw here. I say trusty, it's not very trusty, it's not great, but sometimes it works. For something soft like plastic, I think it'll actually cut well, but honestly we're going to find out. Like I said, this thing can barely cut like 1/4 inch plywood, so let's give it a go. You know, that actually works surprisingly well. Let's cut down a few more of these. Alright guys, so my bandsaw made really quick work of all of the handles. I more or less just measured in 1 1/4 inches from the ends of the blocks. I figure that gives me decent rigidity throughout. So we're on to the glue up now, which is honestly my biggest hang up with this little project is doing a good glue up, because found a lot of, well, actually I didn't find a lot of good information online regarding bonding acrylic. More or less what I found is that you want to wick the glue in, so it's not like you put down some glue then set down it in. You put some pressure, you add your glue. I'm honestly gonna skip the squirt bottle. This is the cheapest option. I think this was like $3 or $4. However, the plastic syringes weren't much more. I think it was like a couple bucks for a syringe and like a couple bucks for the pack of tips. However, I did read using a glass syringe is best. I went with plastic ones because, again, I'm being cheap on this one. So I'm going to throw my mask on here, guys, and we will see what happens. I don't know if I'm going to have to clamp this up, put some weight on it or what, but we'll experiment with the littlest one because it's the easiest to recut, and we'll go from there. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's what I didn't want. So I'm going to do my very best not to drip it all on the actual surface. Again, that syringe is not great. All right, guys, I think we got a pretty good bond there. I think it melted in almost instantly, and you can see it actually did brighten up the edges of that solid clear acrylic. That is cool. All right, guys, I'm slowly getting smarter, maybe. So this is just the arm off of a little 2-ton jack stand. It's the densest thing I have that's small enough to sit on there and actually like keep some pressure. This way I'll be able to use 2 hands so that there ideally isn't extra pressure just on that syringe the entire time. Let's see what happens. I mean, I at least had 2 hands that time, but I'm still struggling to get the right amount to come out. All right, guys, last but not least, let's do this long boy. The reason I'm doing it on top of my Milwaukee workbench here is because it is flat. It is perfectly flat, or near close to. If you're doing this on an uneven surface, this acrylic itself isn't the straightest until you add that square support to it, so something to keep in mind. All right, let's throw this last bit on here. And there we go. All right, guys, so I got those balls flattened out on the belt sander with 80 grit, and then I just ran a little 320 on them as well, just by hand, just smooth it out. Now, I'm really interested to see with these if they end up turning green, sort of like the other bars were. Guess we're gonna find out right away. Just throw my mask on, and we'll do this up. And there we go, guys. Still have a little more cleanup, a little more sanding to do. I'm gonna just let this glue cure overnight. I don't know how long it takes for a full bond, but I'm extremely happy with how these turned out. And yeah, tomorrow we'll come out, round out some of these edges a little bit, clean everything up, and then throw on our hook it backing. It's the next day here. These have been just sitting overnight in the garage. It's been around 0 in here, maybe a little bit above. One thing I did notice when I was looking at these is you can see some air bubbles trapped in the bond, which honestly, like just looking at them from a distance, you don't even notice. I'm not too concerned about it. It's still going to be a good bond. These aren't going anywhere. I can't snap them off. The balls here, I haven't been too aggressive with, but I'm usually gentle with my tools. And as you can see, this block does have some nice flex to it if I'm putting a little bit of pressure on a panel. So pretty pumped. I think this is going to be my mainly used one at the shop I'm at, where we do a lot of fiberglass stuff. Panels aren't necessarily straight to begin with, so this will have a little bit of give. Now, the last thing I want to do here before I apply my hook it backing is to run over the edges to clean up any of the score marks, and then just round my corners ever so slightly as well, so I don't have something like this digging into a panel and scratching paint or causing a gouge. So by just rounding it quickly, it'll be nice and smooth. I'm not going to make you guys watch me sand all this. I'll just throw it on a quick time lapse here and we'll zip right through it. To sand those edges, I'm just using some 220 on my orbital there just to clean everything up, and then I go over it really lightly with some 400 by hand. All right, so we got everything sanded down with the 220 on on the orbital there, rounded out. I did run 400 by hand over it at the end of the time lapse there just to sort of deburr, and then I wiped it down with a damp paper towel just to take off any of that dust. So now we've got our hook it backing. There we go. Not gonna do anything fancy here, just gonna pop down one end to start, slide it around, give it a good press down. Kind of see the bubbles in the backside. I can kind of work them out as I go. Unfortunately, that sort of kills the luminescence of them, but we'll see what it looks like when we cut the edges off. Well, as you can see, guys, this is quite unfortunate. The hook it backing absolutely destroys the neon aspect of it. I didn't even think that would happen. That did not cross my mind in the slightest. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go online and see if I can find some clear or maybe white hook it backing, and we'll see if something like that makes a difference. And I'm going to call it there for today's video. At the end of the day, we do have a functional set of sanding blocks here. If you're using stick-it sandpaper, these are going to work just fine. And if you're using the Velcro, the black's going to work fine too. Like I said, I just don't really like the way that color gets washed out with that Velcro on there. But as you can see, this is a really old piece of 320. It's been used a number of times, and it is gripping just fine. So that'll work. There will be some argument that could be made to only use stick-it sandpaper with this style of block, and I'm not going to disagree with it. When you're using a Velcro style block, you've got that 1/8 of an inch of Velcro, you've got a tiny bit of cushion on your sandpaper as well. Theoretically, that's not going to make as straight of a cut when you're blocking. That being said, though, I have gotten some very, very straight panels using Durablocks, which are a hard foam block with Velcro on them, and never had an issue. But I can see where the argument will be made. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'll try to do an update video in the near future here, utilizing the white Velcro instead of the black Velcro. See if it doesn't wash out that neon effect as much. I might throw it in short. We'll see. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.